Today's Tanya, the 10th day of Tammuz, Yud Tammuz, is in Igeres HaTshuva at the beginning of Perek Gimel, which is on Daf Tzadik Beis Amud Aleph, and the number at the bottom of the page is 350. Chapter 3 of Igeres HaTshuva. Having established the fact that fasting is not for the purpose of forgiveness, to gain forgiveness, but rather to gain acceptance, to be as willingly accepted before God as before the sin, and that the forgiveness comes from tshuva alone. Now the Rebbe continues on with Perek Gimel. V'hinei chachmei hamusar ha'achreinim, the scholars in the field of Musar of the last generations, nechlaku b'mi shechota chet echad pa'amim rabbeis, a person who sinned the same sin many times. So there are two opinions as to how one proceeds. The yesh emrim, there are those who say shetzarech lehisanes mispar hatzemes le'esechet pa'amim rabbeis kefi hamispar hashechota. We said earlier in the previous chapter that for certain sins you have to fast certain numbers of fasts. What happens if you do that same sin twice? As for example, the person who gets angry. So we learned earlier that he has to fast 151 fasts. What if he gets angry twice? Then he has to does he have to fast 151 times twice, or does he fast 151 times for all the times that he had gotten angry? So we find that there is one opinion that says that he has to fast the number of fasts for each time that he committed the sin. Again, the Rebbe gives an example, for wasting the seed. And the number of fasts recommended in the Tikkun Tshuva from the Arizal, the number of fasts is 84. So if he did that sin 10 or 20 times, for example, so according to this opinion, he would have to fast 10 or 20 times 84. And so on forever. Dumyo, similar to the way it is with sacrifices. The Korban Chatos, when you bring a sacrifice for a sin, so the law there is that each time that a person commits a sin, even if it's the same sin repeated, for each time he has to bring a separate sacrifice. And so also today, for each time that the person sins, he has to fast the full series or set of fasts. That's according to one opinion. The Yesh, and then there are other of the sages, Midamin, Inyan Zel, Habo, Mitzvahs Esa. There are those who compare the fasting to the bringing of the Karban Olah, which is brought for the failure to do a positive mitzvah. And in that case, Afilu over al kama mitzvahs esa, a person who failed to do many positive mitzvahs or failed many times to do the same mitzvah, miskaper be'ela echas, he is forgiven, more than forgiven, he is accepted before God with one sacrifice. By bringing one sacrifice, he covers all the times that he sinned in failing to do the mitzvah. Kedisa b'Gemara Perek Amud Zvachim, as the Gemara says in the first Perek of Zvachim, concerning the function of the sacrifice and how one sacrifice covers all the failures to do mitzvahs. So there are two opinions. One opinion compares the fasting to the Karban Chatos, to the offering that is brought for a sin, and then you bring a separate offering for each sin. And the other opinion is that the fasting is similar to the Karban Olah, which is brought for the failure to do a positive mitzvah, and then you would bring only one. And similarly, there would be only one series or one set of fasts, no matter how many times the sin was repeated. And the accepted resolution of this difference of opinion is to fast 3 times, to fast 3 sets, 3 series of fasts. Which means Reish Nun Beis 252. Fasts 3 times. 3 times 84. So if a person commits the sin of wasting the seed, then he should fast 252 fasts, which would be 3 times 84 fasts. And the same would be true for all other sins and transgressions, that you fast the entire series 3 times. So that for getting angry, for example, where the number of fasts is 151, so you would fast 3 times 151. And the reason that we come to this compromise or to this resolution of the dispute, it is based on what is written in the Zohar, Seif Parshas Noach, at the end of Parshas Noach. And that is that Kiv and Dechav Bar Nashka Mikucha Berichu. When a person becomes guilty, sins before God 1 time, Zimna Chada, Ovid Rishimu, it leaves an impression above. It causes a blemish above. Zimnat Lisoi, if he sins a 3rd time, if he repeats the sin 3 times, is Pashet Hahu Kisma Misitrada Lasitrada, then the blemish penetrates through and through, so that it's no longer a blemish, it's a wound, or it's a tear in the fabric, and therefore, Lochein Tzorech Misparatzim is Gamkein Gimel Pa'amim. So we see that sinning 3 times is a different category than anything else. Before the 3rd time, you're dealing only with a blemish. After the 3rd time, you're dealing with a wound. So the critical number is the number 3. And therefore the person should fast 3 sets. In order to heal or to cleanse the damage caused by the 3rd time, and then cleanse the damage caused by the 2nd time, in which the blemish becomes more severe, and then cleanse even the 1st time, where there was only a blemish. However, as the Rebbe will say, the Alter Rebbe will say in tomorrow's Shir, that all this fasting is permissible only for the person who is in such good physical health that he could afford to do all this fasting without damaging his health. But today, when we are not that healthy, then the fasts and fasting in general is not recommended, and the Rebbe has a suggestion of other ways of gaining this cleansing and this acceptability. In the Hayom Yom, for the 10th of Tammuz, for Yud Tammuz, the Rebbe writes that the Alter Rebbe, at the beginning of his Nesius, in the early years of his being Rebbe, once taught the following. It says, "Me'Hashem etzadei gever kenanu," that a person's steps are guided by God. And this means that when a Jew comes to a certain place, it is with a purpose from heaven. The purpose is to do a mitzvah, both a mitzvah between man and God, and a mitzvah between man and man. So a Jew is always a messenger, a shliach from above. And the shliach, the messenger, wherever he may be, he represents the presence and the power of the sender. Now, although angels are also messengers, but there is an advantage to a neshama as a messenger over the angels as messengers, because by neshamas we carry out our mission based on Torah, and the angel does not.